Welcome to this Force Friday. Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is forceful shape. Let's introduce you guys to our other force instructors before we get into it. How are you guys doing? How's it going, Mrityunjay?
I'm doing good. Back with the bald head.
Yes, I know. So I don't know if you want to talk about that or not.
Mhm.
Mrityunjay's
My grandmom passed away, and it's been. I know it's tough, because my mother passed away, and it's been like 8 months. So the reason I shave off my head is that's the Indian rituals. So I'm not pretty much happy about it, but yeah, the thing is, I got the support of you guys, so that's what the thing is, and really happy to see. And I'm sure like my mother and my grandmom would be happy to see the support that their son, is getting from all of you guys. So
yeah.
yeah, I'll say thank you.
Yeah,
That's the.
condolences from all of us, of course. I think we all had, not like Mrityunjay, I have to say, but I think we all had a tough 2021. So I'm kind of looking forward to 2022 being in a hopefully easier, an easier year. You know, right now we're going through this whole Omicron thing, of course, and someday people will be watching this video 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that are younger than us and won't even remember what Omicron really was like or what COVID was really like, fortunately. But yeah, I would just love for all of us to get through this so we can move on with our lives. I mean, fortunately, we have the internet and we're all able to be here together, and keep moving forward. But again, our condolences. How are you doing, Swanley?
Good. Looking forward to work with Force Shape, of course.
Yes.
I never pass on that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's get to it, guys. We're gonna do a lot of drawing for you guys today. I think I want to try and give you guys a little bit of an overview of what we're doing today. First, we've talked about shape before. It's not the first time, but the reason we're coming in here and doing this specifically today and here at the beginning of the year is the three of us brainstormed over the last couple of weeks, and we have set up the next 2 months worth of content for you guys. And some of that was based off of the conversations we had the other week with you as an audience. Excuse me. What we're going to do is over the month of January, we're going to give you some key pointers towards February, because February is Force February, as we did last year. There'll be prizes every week. We're going to pick a winner every week. We'll combine it with Instagram. So on Instagram, I think the way we did it from what I recall is on Instagram, we had the challenge. And on here, I think we mentioned potentially the challenge as well. But on Instagram is where you're posting your entries, right? And then the three of us will look through those entries and we'll bring in some of them, not all of them, but we'll bring in some of them to talk about them on the following week. And we will also announce the winner, I think the week after or something like that is how it worked. And then there'll be a prize per, like I said, per winner, right? What we do know that we can share with you is what we're going to do for Force February is we're going to do character design. So every week there'll be a new character assignment that you guys will be working on, that you'll be submitting, and that's what will determine the prizes on, is those character designs. So like I said, in the month of January, we're going to talk about stuff like shape. We're going to talk about clothing and some of the other topics that you guys recommended, and that'll all be in support of helping you create these character designs throughout the month of February. So we're very excited. I think we're going to have 8 weeks together or so that are going to be really awesome. And that'll take us all the way to the end of the month of February with like I said, with Force February. So we're really excited about that. And this is just the first installment, of course, here at the beginning of January, with kind of preparing you, how to do that. Let me see here. Let me get out my notes on other subjects. Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about shape today. We're going to move shape over to, we're going to talk to you more and more about how do you draw from imagination over the next couple of weeks. We're going to do clothing. And then There's also a particular artist whose work I want you to take a look at as a study, and we'll do that together in one of the Force Fridays to help you basically bridge the gap from working from reference to drawing from imagination. So that'll be a big subject of, of this month. And shape plays for me, shape plays a huge role in all of that. So again, that's why we're doing this today. All right, so very exciting. Like I said, we will, I can't wait till Force February, when we start putting out the character design challenges. So talking about shape is really important to me. I started learning about shape when I was in college, but it was more realistic. It wasn't designed. It was just the idea of seeing shape and positive and negative shape. It wasn't until I went to Disney Animation where I started to recognize that shape has movement, right, and force in it. And then I basically went and developed like all these rules around that and how it works and how to get from just drawing lines to being able to communicate with good shape design. And that exploded my ability to drawing from imagination. I was probably, as most of you are, I was more trapped in looking at reference, and being obligated to reference again, instead of being inspired by it and moving away from it. Today, we're going to start with reference. So this is the first step. We're going to start with reference and just show you how we're seeing these shapes. We'll talk about some of the rules of shape in an effort to get you to a place where you can draw from imagination. So let's get to it. As always, if you're new here, especially today, please feel free to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get the notifications. We're here every Friday, doing this. And I think today is our 91st session, if I'm not mistaken. So we're closing in on 100 in the next couple of months. And thank you for those of you that have been here the whole time with us, right? We've been up and running now for a few years. Thank you for joining us again. So let's move on to force shape. What is it? Why is it? Right? As most of you probably know, if you've been following us for some time or you have any of the force books, I usually start with what you don't want to do. And what you don't want to do with force shape is you don't want to fall into any of these traps, right? And I would even dare say that the big trick here is to recognize that when you're drawing, sure, you're drawing with line, right, as I did to create these shapes. But even though you're seeing me draw with line, when I'm drawing with line, I'm using the line to create shapes. Sounds really simple, very easy to say that, but it's another thing to really do it, So you want to think when you're drawing, you're not just now focused on what's this line. And, as you know, with force, line is really important. And the irony now is we're trying to take that line and say, yeah, I've got a line, but what I'm really trying to do is get this shape down. You see, I'm using the line to get myself to that goal, right? Which in a way almost makes me draw faster too, because I'm not focused on the line. I'm focused on getting to shapes, and the shapes that compels me to work more quickly because I'm trying to see this shape. If I could, which I can't, but if I could, I would be drawing shapes. And I mean, literally, like, here's a shape, like I would need a fat brush that could exactly get me what I want as quickly as possible, right? I'm like I'm drawing that shape that's over there. I'm drawing the mirror image of it right now, and try to get me to doing it in this way, right? It's almost like I'm painting a shape. Or if I could create a stamp, I would like stamp it like a malleable stamp where I could just plug down the shapes, right, and draw that quickly. But we're working in line, right? So I need to draw with line to get to this end point of a shape, right? So the reason these shapes, by the way, are the shapes we want to stay away from is because they're not forceful, and therefore, they don't have flow. They inhibit the act of flowing through the body because they're symmetrical, right? We have this tube, and even a bent tube like this is not good because it's staying symmetrical throughout. This one, again, pinches at the top and pinches at the bottom, right? So we have a double convex pushing out on both sides, but squeezed at both ends. They always call this the taffy or the sausage. And then we have a double concave here. So force isn't directed cleanly out either edge. It's kind of just a random explosion, right? It's almost like a firecracker or a pimple or something, right? Like boom, just pops out. So none of these really work. What we're looking for is the force shape. And a force shape, to go for its abstraction, is a straight line versus a curved line. And this line represents force, which is why we always start with rhythm first. And the straight line basically represents structure, right? It's like really gives us something hard to push against. Now, when I did that, again, in my mind, I was creating this. Sure, I drew two lines, but the two lines were drawn in an effort for me to make that shape. And when you're watching other artists, draw, and they're not all of them, but many of them, especially character designers and such, and storyboard artists, they're usually drawing with shape. You don't know that, right? Like just looking at them, you just see somebody drawing. But the vast majority of the professionals are working from a shape standpoint. So don't look at their lines, look at the shapes that they're creating with those lines, right? So here's my force shape. Now, going back to force, as long as I've got this curve going, I'm pretty safe. I can almost throw anything I want on the other side of the line. If I have a curve like this, I could do this, and I'm still okay as long as this guy is bigger and more powerful and clearer than the other side. You'll see this in clothing a lot, right? We could say, well, I've got the upper arm, the lower arm, I've got this elbows, and then all of a sudden you got all this wrinkling and stuff's bunching up here. I can do all this stuff and still have a good forceful shape. It's not as clean as like straight to curve, but this other side's pretty malleable. It's pretty forgiving. As long as I don't parallel it, right? I don't fall into any of these traps. I can do a lot, right? When the model is nude, of course, you're not going to end up with something like this. The most complicated thing you see is typically something that looks like this. Here's this shape, and this shape, it can be the calf or the forearm muscle. So what happens here? I have a shorter curve against a straight, against a long curve. So this guy cannot be taken over, cannot be challenged, right, to a place where here's my force curve, and oh, by the way, I'm going to put another one on the other side. Same amount of curvature, same length. The closest thing you can do to get to danger is have a very strong curve and maybe a weaker one. And even that is like really pushing it, is really pushing the concept, right? You'll see this in Mickey Mouse, like, you draw the nose and he'll have a weaker curve on one side and a much stronger one in the other. It's still kind of a forceful shape. That's about as far as you can go. Once you start pushing that straight side out further and further, you'll see immediately, even in that first stroke, I'm like, I started mirroring it. It's over. It feels like it's trapped, right? It's just not an appealing shape design. So the reason that it's an appealing shape design is because if you take the shape and you kind of average it out, you're not looking at the lines, you're looking at the shape. If I averaged it out and ran a line through it like so, it has an arc to it. And that's what we want. That arc helps the energy curve. And by curving, it has a clearer focus to go diagonally into another shape. And that's really, really important, right? Because what we want to see is rhythm, right? So I'll have a shape that's like this, right? For instance, and that you can see my average is sitting in there like this, and it's pointing me into another shape, right? And here's my average again, right? So it keeps averaging through there, making this flow happen through almost the center of the average. But from a contour standpoint, it takes me still all the way back to the rhythms of, this front of thigh to back of calf, for instance, right? So these lines are working in that way. Even though what I did, the way I drew it was I drew it in such a way, right, that I drew this shape going into this shape, you see? So now we have two shapes that flow perfectly into one another, and it's rhythmic, right? I have a rhythmic silhouette. That's the trick. The trick is to get to this place, right? Now, when you're drawing shape, shape on its own equals flat, right? Equals 2D. And we don't want that. We want shape that is three-dimensional. So you have to pay more attention to the idea of creating shapes that feel like they actually replicate a three-dimensional form. I could take this same leg and put it in perspective, right? So we could say, here's where the hip is, here's where the knee is going to be, and here's where the ankle is going to be, and still give it a front of thigh, back of calf, and say, I'm going to go from here to here, right? Like so. And here's my straight, and here's my straight, and the kneecap is here. So look, now it's in perspective, but the shape has changed. It's straight to curve, but look at the silhouette, right? Silhouette's very different than the other one. It's still the same leg, different angle of that leg, same forces, right? Still straight to curve, but look at all the foreshortening. And what helps me describe the foreshortening? Well, that's where having form helps me and knowing anatomy helps me create these overlaps, right? It's like, well, I need to have that, I need to have this, right? I just need to be aware of that. Now it's tricky in this one, I have to say, because I really want the foot to come forward, but the thigh, the relationship over here anatomically is that this is in front and this goes behind, right? So what I would probably do here to help myself is I would have the patella in there round to help me create that form. I might have some anatomy in here and give myself some form lines to help with that. It might be in the foot and ankle. See, I put those swirls right almost automatically, not even thinking about it. I put those round lines in there for me to keep thinking about the roundness, right, of the foot, you see, right? So I just want you to be aware that shape needs form. You are drawing the shape of a form. And the mistake a lot of artists make is they then learn about this thing called shape or force shape, and they go right for the jugular without knowing about perspective and construction and so on. And then you're stuck in flatland, right? So you want to go and understand form and structure and perspective, anatomy, and those things. And those things will help you create better and better shapes, okay? All right, any questions? Looks like we're doing fine. Everyone's just saying hello to each other. Okay. Now, I found over the years, the sort of golden shape for me is very simply this kind of bent triangle. Here, let's actually start like this. So here's a triangle, right? This is the shape of it. If I bend that triangle, right, and I do this, now I don't want to do, well, here, so I have that curve and I have this, and I can even bend this a little bit. I can take that straight and even concave it a little bit. I'm totally fine. And the reason I am is since it's a triangle, it has very obviously a wider end, right? Up here, it's wide, and down here, it's narrow. And the width to narrowness alone prohibits you from falling into parallelness, right? Remember, we don't want this shape. This is a bad shape, right? It's like the rubber hose sort of animation style, right? So that ends up stopping that from happening. And ironically, the human body is built like that. So outside of the torso, let's just lock in a non-forceful shape here, right? So here's just a rectangle. But arms and legs and everything, to be really simple, they go from wide to narrow, right? So you have something that looks like this, right? Wider where they connect to the trunk and narrower as they get down to their ends, right? It's the way we're built. So that works, right? Like that already works in our favor because that hopefully will help prohibit you from creating parallel moments, right? So, so keep that in mind. So last but not least, before we start drawing, there's the torsos and trying to get those torso shapes down. And you need to learn the torso templates, right? We have the C, the S, the CS, and the RS. So there's 4 of them. And if you know those, then that will help you also design shapes. If you know an S and you've got a curve from, let's say, the back to the stomach, well, then that means, oh, wait a minute, that means I must put a straight in the front of the rib cage. Let's say here's the chest, right? And I'm going to come down and around. You're going to have a straight for the lumbar region, which starts pushing against the stomach. And then typically I'll use the rear end against like the front of the pelvis or the lower abs to get that straight in there. So I can flow through this and yet not create any sort of pinched effect. Now, yes, I get this question all the time. It's like, well, what do you do with the front of the body? Right? It's like, here's the front of the body. Yep, there's no force there. It's symmetrical because the force is really happening in the side view. So energy is moving forward and back. And you can get that to kind of start happening by like implying how things are moving, towards camera and away from camera. And there's forces like the pectoralis muscle pulling to underneath the deltoid, and you'll get the shape of the anatomy to help break it up. But as a whole, just looking at the shape of a torso, it's symmetrical, right? And the symmetry will stop the forceful shape. Why? Because anatomically, our power is not in a flat front view. Our power is really in the side. You're dealing with like your pectoralis versus all your back muscles. And that's why you do like push-ups and rows and so on, right? I think I see some questions here. How do you make it look more solid and less? Yeah, so the way to get, again, out of rubberiness is you just want to stay away from this, right? For those of you that find that your drawings get rubbery, that means you're putting two lines that are parallel to one another, and you might even be bending them, but they're parallel. And then you have no tension, right? You need the straightness to balance out the softness of the curve, right? Is it possible to use shapes to measure the proportions? Yes, most definitely. I think to me, shape's actually probably one of the best tools for proportion because it's really simple. You know, it's like even just saying, well, here's a circle and here's a triangle. If I were to replicate that, you know, and say, well, here's a circle, here's the triangle. It's like, well, that's not right, right? That triangle is way too big, right? In comparison to the shape of the circle. Your brain, human mind is very good at registering shape. So shape's a great relative measurer. It's also great for positive and negative space, right? Like now I have a clear negative in between the legs over here versus the positive of the legs themselves. I also have negatives in here, right? Between the arm and the body. So that helps you measure as well. I have to say the hose arms aren't forceful, but they're kind of funny. Yeah, they are funny on cartoons. It's not like they're bad, by the way. You want to draw hose arms, draw hose arms. Do they have fluidity and rhythm and shape design, you know, forceful shape design? No, they don't. Are they funny? Sure, because you can do all kinds of crazy things, and our anatomy doesn't work like that. So in a way, it even makes it funnier because they're rubbery, right? Let's see, when you are drawing more bony parts of the form and lower legs, to keep them straight or give them a slight curve. Yeah, so places like here, this is always a trouble spot, or maybe right at the wrist. The best of the worst of shapes is to have two straight lines, no curve, but to have a wide end and a narrow end. So at least it feels like energy is like funneling down to a point, right? If you're really stuck, like especially in the shins above the ankles, you might be in a place like this, right? So, you know, you want to at least go to the two straights, right? In the least. I'll still try to just put a little bit of bend into one of them, and just, you'd be amazed what just a couple of pixels will do, and moving a line over, that gives you a little bit more force, right? The way you make the front of the body, to RSQ15's question, more dynamic is you don't have a still straight standing body with a straight line running through it, right? You don't do this, you know, you do this, right? You create a C torso that's like this. So you got more drama. You do an S torso that's like this in the front view, right? That's how you break out of the straight line, right? You either create a clear arc or you create an S curve in the torso in the front view or the back view, and that snaps you immediately out of this whole like straight line, right? So that's what we're talking about. We want to have the ability to see the body through shapes, understand that when shapes overlap one another, like you have here, that starts to give you form and space. And I think it's very valid to go in when you're drawing these shapes, you know, let's say here's a force shape, you know, and put some form in there still. Be aware that you got this shape going on, but you don't want to fall into the land of flatness, you know, so you want this forceful shape, but you want form in there, right? I always love this example of, you know, if you took a circle, right? It doesn't take much to make a circle into a sphere. Right now it's flat. It's just this flat shape here. I'll tone it in. And tone, I think, is the tool that we teach at drawingforce.com to students when we get to shape, is tone things in, because it helps you see the flatness, the shape of it. But all I got to do is this, one line, form, right? All of a sudden we went from a circle to a sphere with one line, right? So pretty powerful. Or my other favorite example, sounds like I'm talking about, oh, but I have this best friend and this is my best friend, but there's actually numerous best friends. This is my other best friend over here, is this shape, right? So here's the shape, right? Let's tone in the shape. It always makes me laugh with little kids when they're like, oh, and here's my other best friend. I'm like, there can only be one best, pick one. You got to go with one or another, kid, life's tough. So here's this shape, right? But this shape could be a cube from 3 different views, right? It could be this. So it's a 2-point perspective. We see the left and we see the right. It can be a cube that we're looking at from above and looking down on, like that, right? So here's the top. Or it can be a cube that we're looking up at, right? And I could do this. So I want you to be aware of the marriage and importance of form relative to shape. Shape's great, super powerful, but it's pretty generally flat. It's you having to be sophisticated enough to get more form inside of it and understanding overlap because of all those forms and the shape of the shape, right, relative to a form to make sense of it. Otherwise, you're going to end up with very geometric flat, like I said, shapes. Let's see, any other questions before I go and hand this off? Can you explain about the range of motions possible legs I've observed at the tilted torso? I can't go into that now, Sahil. That's like a whole other subject. That's a great note for us for the future, is to talk about legs and the different views and so on. Today, I really want to just focus on the overarching idea of shape design and how to use it. And you'll probably get some of those answers maybe in these drawings that we'll be doing, because we're going to talk about drawing the figure, right? So I'll get started. I'll do a really quick pose or two with some shapes and then hand it off to Swinley and Mrityunjay. I'll just take a couple of minutes here very quickly. So here's our model, and I want shape, but shape comes from force. So that's why we don't start with shape right away. We start with force, and then we go to form, and then we go to shape, and then we go to anatomy, right? So I see that the model is on an angle with their shoulders. I see it's a C torso. He's bending this way, right? That means this is going to tuck in here, and you can see all this like wrinkling that's going on here, right? It's like this, right? And you can see his rib cage is popping out right there. So this is my big like curve of force and 2 smaller curves. That's totally fine. I can do this. See, this guy's not being overpowered by the other ideas, right? I might even be able to straighten this out a little if I wanted, even though most of it's blocked or even down here. But this is my general idea, right? So I get down to the legs. I'll go with the strong leg first. I'm going to hook up this hip here. And now I'm going to make this really simple for you guys first, right? Like the shape here is a curve to a straight. Right, here's his pelvis, right? You can see I painted in his wonderful shorts here, right? So he's got straight to curve like this. I'm gonna ignore the anatomy for a minute. And then I wanna get down to his lower leg. I'm gonna keep that on the front. So force is on the front, force on the front. I'm gonna say his other leg is going like this, right? And then we have his foot, which is also, look at the straight to curve shape of it. You see that? It's like that. And then we have his toe like popping out of there, right? No form, no nothing in here. I have this flat shape. I do want to be aware of form. It's very subtly like this, and down here it's going down, 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 right? I'll get back to that in a minute. Let's get to the other shape. So here's this other leg. I'm going to say that's the curve, which means this is my straight, right? Here's another curve, and here's my straight. Let's bump this up a little bit. You know, and that'll get me to his heel, and you'll notice the foot is like this. Again, very simple. And then it has a sweep in it like that. Right, so there's other shape. Now I get to his deltoid, right? I've got his anatomy here. I'm going to straighten out the back and make this more of the stronger curve. It feels to me like he's pushing into his shoulder. Then I'm going to continue this arm like this. It really feels like he's sweeping like this. It's kind of weird because it really breaks what I normally teach. I have to say, my other option here is to do this and say he's hyperextending the elbow. But I don't really see that from the shape standpoint very clearly. Kind of confusing, to tell you the truth, right? It really seems like if I were to average a line through his arm there, that I'm dealing with this, right? And then a break in here like this. And that'll be another shape, curve to straight there too, okay? Here's the center of his body, by the way, right? I could put his chest in here, I get some form in there going. And let's just get to the other arm. I want you to just see how simply I'm drawing this, right? This arm is basically curve and curve to straight and straight, right? Like so. And then we have his hand here. I'm being very rudimentary here purposely, right? And then for me, the head almost is always a straight to curve as well. And usually the curve is on the front of the face and the straight is more the back of the head. You can see he's got some angles in here, but we've got this curve on the front. And there's like the general idea. Right after this, I can go in there and really sort of nuance the shapes into the anatomy, right? I could say, well, you know, this really comes out like this, and then it dips in to his quadricep and his knee pops out, right? And then his knee tucks in right? And then we have the muscles of the shin, right? We got this is going front to back, by the way. Then I've got his gastrocnemius here, and it tucks in his calf muscle, right? And that sweeps down like this, right? So you can see I can keep massaging this, you know, get form in there, anatomy in there, everything else can keep coming in here. But the forceful shape of it all really helped set me up, right? Okay. You know, in this arm, I would want the form. I want to make sure I talk about how this arm's coming out. I would want to talk about this arm's tricky. This is definitely coming out like so. And I'd say this one is too, but very slightly, right? So that's it, right? You can see that I can get a, you know, a figure like this from very simple shape design into something that looks more accurate, right? I can keep nudging in here. It's like, here's this patella. You know, we can get the knee in there. We can get the gastrocnemius again in there, and get the real silhouette going based off of the anatomy, right? You can see his muscle goes like this and then kind of angles in, and that's because of the sartorius here, right? Any questions? Let's see. In the relationship legs. All right. So there you can see, like, this is how it happens, right? So we want those simple shapes. Last but not least, let's see. I'll crank this one out, and then I'm going to hand it off. And I don't think we got decided, guys, who's going to go after me. You guys have a preference there while I'm doing this?
Only even here last week, so
Yeah, that's true. Something can go up next. Let's give him a shot at the yeah, to get up there. So here's my like big curve of force, right? I'm coming around, that gives me form. I'm where the center. So you'll see I'm massaging the shape. I'm creating the silhouette of the torso. And at the same time, I'm trying to get form in there. Notice I've got some roundness in there. I got the center line. This is a trick of mine, by the way. I'll come over the spine and cut through the whole upper body and through the neck and use that to help me get the center of the chest. You see, so I just went through the whole roundness of the top of the body. And then I think all this force is like coming down into the shoulders like this. So this would be my curve versus my straight. And then I would say his arms are like this, right? And then his hand is doing a little thing over here. This one you can see even better that it's arcing like this, right? And then there's the shape of it. Because it's such a simple shape, again, it kind of becomes easier to measure. I'm like, oh, look at that little shape for this arm. You can see his thumb isn't too far away from his back. This one is much further out, right? The distance from here to here, right, is very different than the distance from here to here, right? And you can see what I need to work on already right here, I can see is his neck starts like way over here, right? And where his chin is, and I gotta watch that. His chest is here, the overlap for his body is right here, and his leg shows up out of his chest, right? So that's interesting. I gotta watch that shape, right? So again, because I am looking through shape, it's making it a little easier. I gotta tuck his back in here more to make that shape work. And then his back leg here would be outside, inside, outside. So the shape would be like this. I gotta watch the perspective. This one I would go front to front. So front of thigh, front of calf. Here would be the straight of it, and here would be the straight of it, right? And then I can get, again, all the anatomy in there, right? But there's like the basis of it. You can see how fast I can get to this just by understanding the shapes of it, you see? So super, super powerful tool to draw very quickly, see positive, negative space, get the measurements down, draw a forceful shape, and then overlapping of shape will get you form, you know, pretty darn fast. So why does this matter? This matters because, like I said, in due time, we're going to work on character design in February, and shape is super important for character design, right? And for you to have the ability to draw from your imagination. Okay. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to Swenley. Let's give you the sort of E-man here. Let's see. And okay, so there you go. I'm going to stop share.
All right, let's see. Can you guys see my screen?
It's coming up. There it is.
Okay. So yeah, thank you, Mike, for the intro and the demo. So let's just go right into it here. I picked this pose because the silhouette is super clear, and I think it's a great reference for force shapes. So first of all, we see a very like strong arc. Now, so this is my curve of force. I can use a straight here for the top of the torso. Well, the thing is, as I'm drawing this, again, like Mike talked about, as I'm drawing this line here, I'm actually thinking this, I'm thinking of the roundness, you know, so that's my knowledge of form is affecting the lines I put down. You know, without knowing form, it's easy to like flatten out the drawing in that area. So let's see, we have like a nice curve here at the back into the pelvis. And I noticed that her pelvis is at an angle. Now, so the farthest side of the pelvis is going up. And so this curve right here, this goes from the front of the chest into the abs, you know, and into the like the crotch area. And now we need the width of the pelvis here, because keep in mind, especially with females with the hourglass shape, that pelvis box is going to get slightly wider. You know, so here we have like the farther side of the triangle. Now we can come around and add this triangle as well. Now, and this would be like the top of the pelvis, where a short's like wrapping around. You know, so this triangle right here, this shape is right here. You know, so we have this, we can add like the turning edge here, the corner of the box, you know, to fill that shape with form. So that's this line. But remember, this is a symmetrical form. So whatever is happening on this side must happen on that side. So we see a little bit of the width of the pelvis sticking out there. You know, and I often see students like forget that, and then the construction of the thigh looks off, you know, because some of the form is missing. Let's see, so let's get into those legs. So this leg right here is still from the calf into the inner knee. That's kind of like hidden behind the other leg, but then to the front of the lower leg. Now, so if you look at the shape of the lower leg as a whole, now the shape is like this. Now the force shape. So this is the curve of the front. Then you have like a smaller curve here for the calf. And notice that the shape has a clear direction to it. You know, so it's not front to back, meaning that the lower leg is not curved like that. You know, like this shape doesn't match what's happening there. Let's move this up a little bit so I can get the foot. I usually wrap around at the ankles. Then we have the heel back here, and very strong like force being applied to the ball of the foot. Now she's firmly standing on the ground plane. This leg is also outside thigh, inside knee, and outside calf. Now then we go to the inside ankle, and if you notice closely, you can see like this wrench kind of shape that the ankle bones create, and like the foot shape, it's like connected to that. Now going that way, add some tone here, just creates the illusion of a ground plane. All right, so let's get the center. So when adding the center, again, I'm filling the torso shape with form. So I have to pay attention to where is the center relative to the farther edge. You know, if I place a center here, it tells me something completely different. It tells me that her torso is facing us more, you know, but in this case, notice the distance from here to here. Okay, so this would be like the top of her shorts. Now I can use the shorts here to like wrap around and create the sockets for the thighs, which also gives us form. I can use her top, you know, like wrapping around to add some form there. I can add the arc of the rib cage. Let's So let's go from using the clavicles in this case, and like the S curve they create with the deltoids, which then connects me to the arm. So let's see, it looks like the curve of the arm is on this side. Someone asked about shape. I'm looking at the negative shape to help me with proportions. So I'm looking at this shape right here, and where does it connect to the wrist? So all of this goes through my mind as I'm drawing. I'm using that to estimate the proper length of the arm. So this is my curve of force. Now I'm going with the straights. I can visually measure from here to here as I'm drawing that line. Like, what's the distance of that straight? Here is like the bump of the forearm muscle. Now I continue with the straights, and the wrist would be around here, using a little wrapping, to create the idea of a cylinder. Then the hands, I have to look at, is the hands a continuation of the force curve of the arm, or do I go to the other side to create a rhythm? In this case, the force curve of the arm is pointing me that way. But notice that there is a little like break here at the wrist, like the hand is pointing down. So I have a rhythm between the arm and the palm of the hand. So this is my curve. I can add a straight here. Also the hand is a force shape as well. There's a little curve of force here at the bottom at the knuckle, which then gets me into the finger, and I have a little rhythm right here, the last digit of that finger. I can use a simple curve for the other ones for now. All right, let's see. I would have to zoom out and make this just a bit smaller if I want to get that other hands and arm on the page as well. Let's see if this fits. So here again, I'm using the clavicle. The clavicle, of course, has to wrap around the neck cylinder and connect us to the deltoids. Now, so I'm looking at the anatomy here to help me with the placement. So the arm, I'm getting my force curve here, and this would continue and be off page for now. And then for the neck and heads, I approach it the same way as the rest of the body. I need a force curve so I can see a rhythm between here, the front of the torso, and the neck and heads. If I simplify them into one force curve, I can see force coming from here and going here. So this would be my force curve. Then in a very abstract way, I could simplify the neck and head into a force shape, giving me this to this. So this is starting to get me the like the gesture, the action that's going on. And now I can start separating this. So this would be the heads. I can get the triangle of the neck muscles and there. And keeping in mind that the neck is a cylinder, so like a taper cylinder form. Eye line is here. Now, same here. I'm looking where's the corner of the face relative to the farther edge. Now I want the right width of this plane, so where head is facing in the right direction in space. Now you can see a little bit of the ear. All right. So here I have the force shape of the deltoid. So notice that this bump right here, this is the pectoralis muscle. Now, so you go from the deltoid shape into the pectoralis, and then like halfway that approximately, we have the form of the breasts. Same on this side. Now this is the form of the breast, and here we can see this is the pectoralis muscle creating the shape right here, which then kind of merges with the deltoid. Now, so we go from the deltoid to the pectoralis. And here we have the breast, and her top is wrapping around. Let's see, let's get the top in here. It's going over the shoulders. So basically now I have like a good setup. The action is there. I would maybe look at the reference. I think there is a bit more applied force on the torso. So I would fix that before moving on. I want the same amount of stretching power that the figure has. So I'm going over it again, doing kind of more of a force pass to make sure that the energy is there. I can quickly add the shape of the hair, paying attention to how it wraps around the form. So the hair shape right here is the center and the turning edge. And we have like this strand of hair, which I can simplify into a four shape as well. Let's see. So last but not least, I can add in like the shape of the inner calf muscles. So this is a good base. The action is there, the shapes and the forms are working. So from here on, just like Mike showed, it's easy to go in there and start adding the smaller shapes of the anatomy. And you can continue refining. All right, and go to hand it over to Mrityunjay, so he has plenty of time to draw as well. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful for you guys. And if you have questions, of course, feel free to write those in the chat. Stop the share.
All right, thank you, Swinley.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have to hand over some power here. Let's see, Mrityunjay, co-host. There you go.
All right. So time for some shape scribbling. Actually, Counter Patch in the chat is talking about this thing, if you guys do it more like a scribbly way or, do it like, yep. So yeah, I agree to the fact that, because of the shape of the simplicity, the simplicity of the shape, it really allows you to draw more accurate. Yeah, but I'm just like a big fan of line. I accept that it works in the surface of the shape, when it comes to this, but I just use everything in it, so might be a little bit faster here. I'm just like I'm trying to like combine all those like the month that have been passed through, like with all the 30-second gestures and like 1 minute gesture kind of thing. And I'm more for like a scribbly guy, but the thing is, I want to show you that you can still use shape, right? But it could be like much more hidden in it, in your drawings. So yep, you're going to be seeing a lot of versatility, across like all three of us basically. All right, so let's get started. Oops. Photoshop sometimes you can't handle my speed, all right, so see what we got. We got this curve here right at the back. This is going, first of all, obviously it's come to force, right? The templates, the correct templates that we gotta use. So I see this relationship between the ribcage and the abdomen right there, right? Now this goes at the back right here. And see what I started to do, I started to use that straight, in here, which is already me thinking in terms of more shapes, okay? So this shape, okay, I got this curve, and I got this straight at the back, okay, which supports this abdomen curve, right? So that's a force shape for me. And then this rhythm like goes to the back. So there's another force shape. So, and here obviously would be a straight because that's a curve against it, right? So you can see it's like made out of 3 force shapes in there, already. So even like it's more hidden, for you guys, when I'm drawing, let's imagine like I'm not talking, okay? And it would be more hidden for you, but I'm already thinking in terms of like those 3 relationship, okay? Like with the relationship of these 3 force shapes here, okay? All right, let's try to do that. I'm doing mostly like together, like everything in together, like force, form, and shape together here. Yep, something like this, and this is my straight, obviously, right? All right, I'm starting to see what I'm doing right now, you know. Now if it comes to hand, this same rhythm like comes to the deltoid, right? Again, I'm figuring out the template first, which means the rhythm or the force here is at the back of the arm, right? Right, the elbow side, and then I'm putting a straight against it like that. This rhythm goes across here, then there's putting a straight in here, that creates this arm. There's another rhythm right there, see? There's another curve in here that I'm putting straights. I'm still not thinking about like the specific anatomical details, just as like Mike and Sunday did. I'm thinking about that, but I'm thinking in terms of this negative space here, see? Right there, that's the negative space. Now, this is a little bit more because I haven't put the head yet in here, no? So I can put the head really, really quickly. And now see that negative space start to become like more and more accurate, you know, to that figure in there. All right. Now what I can do, you know, I can, obviously I need to put the legs in here. So see, I'm watching the angles, putting in the curves, right? So those are the two curves. I'm defining the relationship first, and then I'm putting in the straights. And see how like how fast you can iterate, you know, with the shape. That's actually the main goal and the magical thing about shape, obviously because of the simplicity, but how fast you're able to iterate with it. Okay, that's what the thing is. All right, getting this. So for you guys like who are you know, already like members from a certain amount of time, or who have been watching the Force Fridays, you know that we are really working in this hierarchical way, right? Hierarchical means that we are prioritizing ideas. Okay, even in shape, you know, we are still dealing with that hierarchy thing because we are dealing with the biggest shape of the body, you know, that it can be. So that's why, and that's why I'm talking about this negative spaces, you know. So like here's a negative space right there, right? These are all the negative spaces basically, right? And then you're dealing with the positive shape, basically the space occupied by the figure, right? So we are dealing with this like bigger shapes first, okay? And that's what allows like someone to be like really, really accurate, because now you're kind of measuring, but you're not measuring something like this, you know, like with your pencils. The thing is that you're measuring with the act of force, you know, basically, or the act of shapes. Right, then I can put some anatomy in here. I can put the bump of the calf right there. Again, you know, it's all after this. You know, I'm putting the shape, then I'm putting like the extra muscle to it, like that. And still I'm dealing with this asymmetrical shape. That's what's not allowing it to become stiff, right? That's what the thing is. So be careful about the symmetry, you know, like the symmetrical shapes, or you're not creating symmetry, you know, all those kind of things. All right. There's a simple foot in here. I can put more anatomy right there. Right, there's a bump of the hamstrings. See what I'm getting? So there's definitely form in it. Okay, so I need to create form right there. I created this. This leg is going a little bit towards like into the space, you know, right there. So that's it, you know. So looking at this drawing, you would say, "Oh, it's very scribbly, right? This is this is the thing that you were doing all the time from before, even in 30 seconds or 1 minute gesture." But I just want to admit it, you know, I'm still thinking in terms of shape, you know, even in those like quick gestures in here. So let's try to highlight, okay, let's try to highlight some of it and see like how many shapes, you know, we can find in here. All right, let's see. I'm just gonna do it like full value right there. So see, there's a shape, right? I see a shape there, just like this. I see another shape. Let's take blue, right? There's another shape. See, I'm trying to find like different like shapes, and we're trying to figure out, I'm not trying to count it, but this will tell you like where the shape actually lies. Okay, so let's take green. There's another shape in here, right there. Now there's another shape, which is, let's take a little bit of blue again, which is right here. Okay, that's another shape. Try to take red again, maybe a little bit pink. Right there's another shape. We'll try to do this as well. There's another shape in there. Let's try to take blue again. See, there's another shape. It's the same with the arm. Now see with the arm, what's happening is arm is just like really one rhythm, okay, like all the way to the back of the arm. So we have like two straights, okay, which is like this and this. So, yep, you can say that this is just one single shape, you know, it's just like one rhythm right there. The thing is, the shape is, you know, when you can call it two shapes, when there's like the force is traveling the opposite way, you know, something like this, which is happening. And then when you have like the straight in the middle, basically you count the shapes on the counting of the curves of force. Okay, so because this is just a one single curve, we can call it that like one shape. This is literally just like one shape in here. Yeah, we have one more, which is right here. We have one more. All the best friends again. All the best friends here. All right, so that's it. That's also one more shape in here. Oh, again, you can call this like, oh, that's chest is also like a straight curve design, something like this, right? So that's it, you know, that's some of the shapes. And we have about 3 minutes left. I'll just try to cover this like really, really quickly. It's kind of coincidence that Mike put it for the thumbnail, and I chose that one as well. Yeah. So let's try to cover it up really, really quickly. All right. So see, we got the curve here. Okay, like really, really strong. We got the straight here. You know, see. So thinking in terms of shape again, right, really, really quickly. See, I'm creating that. This is one. This is like the two curves in here. Okay, and this is obviously creating squash. Okay, up in the body. Now let's get the legs going first. Okay, so see that curve? I see that curve. See that straight going on in here. That's hitting the knee. This would be an outside, inside, outside, right? Something like this. This is a curve again, right? Coming to the knee. Something like this. A little smaller. Right? I'm putting like literally, I'm putting straights. I'm putting straight in here as well. Okay. Right there, it's how it's happening. Right, something like this. This is also straight, obviously, but because it's like so tightened up, you know, towards each other. Here, what's happening is it's kind of creating a tangent. I'll try to like differentiate between that, so I have some negative space in between. Right there. I have one more hand to cover. Something like this. See, that's a curve again. That's the curve of the hand. And then I got this like cool gesture out of it. And then I got this curve, right? Then I got the neck rhythm, and then into the face right there, right? Something like this. And see, so that's again, you know, one of the really quick scribbles, but as you see, like it really has like this shapy like feel to it, right? And then you can put it in a form, and then you can massage it, you know, as much as you like. Okay. All right. So let's conclude the stream. We are just at the moment. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you, Matunjay. I love the color coding.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, you know, thank you everyone for coming today. Like I said, this is just the first step amongst many subjects we're going to talk about in January to help you work through the Force February challenges, which will be character designs. And that's going to be really fun. We're going to even ramp up those character designs from easier to more difficult. So stick around, stay with us throughout the month of January. That'll lead us into February, where we'll do the characters. We'll have prizes throughout that month. And then we'll see where we go in March. So hope you enjoyed Shape. You know, go watch the video again, go and try to practice, you know, on your own. You saw us doing it with reference today. So see if you can grab some photos of models and see if you can find those straight to curve shapes. And then you can always manipulate those shapes thereafter with further detail and anatomy, but they're at the foundation, the core of it. You want to make sure that you hold on to some sense of structure and perspective in the shapes. In the end, you kind of ping pong back and forth between those two ideas. You always want force going, and that's already embedded in the shape itself. But you want to make sure that you're thinking about forms as you're developing those shapes. And it's a tough thing to split up. When you really know what you're doing, they really kind of happen at the same time, right? So, and then it all just takes practice, as Scott was just saying. All right, everyone, have a great week. We will see you next Friday. Thank you again, Mattesi and Swenley, as always, for some awesome demos. And I'll see you guys in 7 days. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
See you guys. Bye.
Yeah.